Welcome to this video on software development methodologies. This is going to be part 1 of 2 videos about the different development methodologies. Now we talked about the SDLC or the software development lifecycle. Within that lifecycle, there are development methodologies, ways that we can develop software or process that we follow. So in this video, we are going to focus on a few different ones. And then in the next video, we will complete all of the different methodologies. Software development is really a process in how or which software is created. This is a model, it's a framework, it's a methodology, whatever you want to call it. It is a process in how we build software. The first model you need to be familiar with is probably one of the most famous, which is the waterfall model. The waterfall model is a sequential and repetitive development lifecycle. That's why they refer to it as iterative. It's repetitive. This model was actually created in 1970 by Winston Royce. He wrote a paper called Managing the Development of a Large Software System, and there are variations all over the world of this model. There are a lot of different ways to do this. But the common step within the waterfall model across all the different methodologies are requirement, design, implementation, and operation and maintenance. Now, there are a variety of different steps depending on what kind of model you reference. Now, Winston Royce laid it out this way, where there was system requirement, software requirement, analysis, program design, coding, testing, and operation. The way that we actually implement this now is a little bit different. So across all the different models, here are the consistencies. And this is what you need to know for the exam. First, you need to develop requirements, and this could be either system or software requirements, depending on what you are building. The next step would be designing. This could be preliminary design, and it can also be detailed design. Then we would move into implementation, where we build code and then debug, and then at the point we would test, and then you have operation and maintenance. Now, as you notice, this is why they call it the waterfall, because it's falling just like it would fall off stones. As you move through the different steps, this is the sequential order you have to follow. And also we can move back up the model as well. So if we find something in testing, we can go back to implementation and fix that, and then move back into testing. And same with the operation and maintenance and so on. The only downside to this model is you have to complete this step in order to move to the next step. You can't really get through requirements and then back up. You need to actually go to design, then go back to requirement to refine this. Now, I do want you to notice there is no disposal, no retirement, or no any other step like that. There is no completion step. It's iterative, it's repetitive, and we just continue the process over and over. So we use information from each one of the previous steps or phases in a sort of feedback loop, and that's the characteristics of this model. Now, while it is popular, there are some things about the waterfall model that can have a little bit of drawback when you are developing software. First of all, you have to know all of your requirements upfront. So you have to have your requirements defined before you moved into design. So what that means is we are going to have to spend some time in the development of all the different requirements. So a lot of engineering gets done upfront. It also requires a structured process, which can implement flexibility in the design, or if we introduce new requirement. So as we are designing things, if we realize, wow, we did not really think of this, or we did not think of that, it's really going to impact the agility to move back and then think things through. So there not a lot of agility or flexibility in this model. We are really just stepping through the steps to make sure that everything is methodical. So waterfall can be helpful when you need a methodical approach or a well thought out approach. So if you have sensitive application, if you have a high risk application or something that's providing high risk data, the waterfall model is the best approach because you are going to think things out very methodically before you step into the design. So that's the waterfall model. The next model is increment build model. This is a software model that is designed to build software in a series of smaller parts or chunk or pieces, and those are called increments, and these increments are completed as necessary to create a larger software project. So in other words, this model is focused on developing a smaller, more achievable chunks of work. That way we can focus on specific function, specific task, and we can get them done in increments, and then compile all of that work together, and that will eventually complete the project. If you have done agile development before, this is similar model to that, except the predates agile. In the increment build model, what we would do first is we would lay out our analysis or requirements. So we analyzed everything, we lay out our requirements, then we perform our design work, we do the coding, the testing when we deliver it, and that's in one increment. Something that's very important to know is that we are doing our system engineering during analysis and designing. We are engineering upfront a little bit, and then we are moving into design. We start building the thing. We start trying to figure out what's going on, what we want this software to look like, and that's part of the engineering process, and that allow us to move back and forth between these two steps here. Then we moved into the actual coding and the testing and delivery. Then as we have done one chunk of work, now we have increment 2 where we perform more analysis based on the last delivery. What do we need to do now based on the last delivery? What do we need to design to continue this project, and then on and on until we complete the project. And really what this model help us to do is to understand the environment and also the dependencies and some of the impacts as we are delivering software into this environment, and this help us also adapt to those things, some of the impact in this environment and some difficulties maybe we had in the increment 1. We can plan for those things in increment 2 and 3 and hopefully avoid those in future. So it allow us to build our lesson learned in as well. The next model we have is the spiral model. Now the spiral model is a little bit different approach. This allow for the product to revisit development phase multiple times. So the typical step here we are going to perform planning, risk analysis, engineering, and evaluation. And keep in mind that risk analysis here is not the same as risk assessment or risk analysis for security. This is all about software development. So we are actually inserting ourselves into this model versus this model is working for us. So again, this allow us to put a product through the development multiple times, and here's a visual representation for what that model might look like. First off, let's say we have prototype number 1. We are going to run a prototype through the model, and as it goes through the model we get it to evaluation. So the first iteration or the first prototype is already into evaluation, and in evaluation we realize, wow, there's something that probably not right here, we need to go back and fix a couple things. So then we put prototypes 2 through the model and it goes back through the model, and now it's in engineering, and as it's in engineering we realize some other things are wrong. Maybe we identify some things in engineering that need to go back. And now the third prototype has made its way through risk analysis. And the same with the prototype number 4. We find more problem, more fix, more impact, and now we started through the planning. So we can have 4 different versions of our product going through development, and we are tracking each and every one of those steps through the process. Now, one of the major drawback of this model is building security into the development process, because as you can see, we have 4 different prototypes moving through the model and moving through development. We have to pay attention to this and account for it at every step of the model. So it can be very cumbersome and it can be very difficult to build security into development. If building security in is the most important, there's a better approach, and we will talk about those in the next video. For this video, the bottom line is to know each step of the waterfall model as we talk about, also understand the purpose of the increment build model and understand the purpose of spiral model as well.